Aloha everyone and welcome to another Tinker's Academy video. I'm your host Kay Elmer and this video is my testimony and my story of what it's like to sleep in the Super Bloc. As some of you may know, I received it about a month ago and I just kind of got a crazy idea that I would just go ahead and sleep in it and just see what happens. And so the month did not go as I had ever imagined in my wildest expectations on what would happen to me during that month of trialing the Super Bloc. And so this is my story. And I also, in the middle of it, I also did a 5-day trial of the brain support frequency, the new one, and had a incredible experience with that as well. So here's my story. And it's just really kind of hard to tell because there's so much going on. So I'll kind of do my best, and hopefully you guys can kind of understand what happened and the results. Because personally, the results are beyond amazing from as to what happened to me. So here we go. So I just kind of want to start off with the preconditions. So you kind of level set on what I'm working with here, or what I was doing was, first of all, I've never done this before. And, you all know that I've been tinkering with the Leela tool since day one of the first persons to ever own a quantum block. And I own 5 or 6 of them now. And so I'm always around them. I've tinkered with capsules. And so I've just immersed in quantum energy. But I've always done one thing, which is I never put anything in my room, in my bedroom. Because in the very beginning, like 4 years ago, even if I wore a capsule to bed, it would really disrupt my sleep. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and I just really wasn't getting very good sleep. So I just really kind of avoided having it in my room, which is one of the recommendations. So I never actually slept in a block. I've actually put my head and body parts in blocks for various reasons. But I've never actually slept in one. So this was completely new to me. The other thing too about my sleeping patterns is I'm naturally biphasic. So I'm just one of those individuals that sleeps in shifts. So I have like a night shift and a day shift where my body just says, hey, you need to sleep. So my natural sleeping patterns are about 4 hours at night and about 4 hours during the day. And it just depends. So that's kind of that's my natural rhythm. So waking up after 4 hours is totally natural for me. So I was kind of just keeping that in mind as I kind of evaluated, like what the impact of to my sleep would be. Because, I mean, to start off sleeping in a 5600 block compared to the other blocks is pretty crazy idea, but that's kind of what I'm known for doing. I'm a tinker, and I just decided to go for it. So it was pretty interesting experiment. The other thing too is I'm a biohacker. I'm constantly taking tons of nootropics and anti-aging stuff, and so I stopped doing that for the whole month. I did not take anything that would enhance my performance mentally, physically, or anything like that during that month. And I only took just my regular vitamins and minerals, my stack of those, and I did not take anything extra beyond just regular vitamins and minerals for the month, so that I could get a true impression of of my mental performance, my physical feeling, and all that. So it was just vitamins and minerals, no nootropics, no anti-aging stuff. And the other thing was I was running Quantum Upgrade the whole time, and normally I just run it on Heal 360, and that's what I usually just run day and night. And so during the trial, the 1 month experiment, I was running Heal 360, except for the 1 week I was running the brain support frequency. And then the overall objective of this experiment was to just kind of just see what would happen. So it's all anecdotal observations. I do want to preface that, I don't use Aura rings or Fitbits, or, I don't use AO scan or any of these other devices and tools. I was just going purely off of what I observed of my own, how I felt and what happened and changes in my body. So with particular focus of, just paying attention to, does it affect my sleep? Does it affect my dreams? And any physical effects that would come from sleeping in a block and using the brain support frequency. So that's kind of what the preconditions of this experiment was. And so, and then the other thing I want to kind of convey is how I had placed the plates. Now, as you know from my prior video, I have one of the prototypes of the Super Bloc. So my Super Bloc is the same size as a Grand Block. It's a square one. It's not one of these round ones, right? These are the final product right here is what's on sale. But I actually got a prototype when the Super Bloc was programmed as a big, a big block, the size of a what they call a grand block. And so they took the plates off and I set them up on around my bed or in position of my bed, so that the plates here are between where my basically the trunk of my body would be. And that's how I started. So that's where I positioned the plates. And the other plate is actually on the other side of the room, leaning against my dresser. So it's about like that. So it's about, I would say, about a good, easily, the plates are easily at least 15 feet apart. So, they're pretty, that's pretty, there's a lot of distance in between where I sleep, where my trunk of my body sleeps between the plates, to give you an idea of placement. Now, my dog, I have two dogs. This is my older dog. His name is Norman. He comes into play in this story. And so he normally sleeps down here at the foot of my bed. Sometimes he'll crawl up and sleep here. But for the most of the part, for the month, he kind of just was hanging out down here at the foot of my bed. My other dog sleeps right here. And that's kind of where the dogs were sleeping during the experiment. And things changed throughout the month. And so let me just kind of tell you like kind of what happened. And as I was trying to figure out how to share this story, the only thing, the best approach that I could come up with was just to show you what happened, week by week on a calendar, because I was taking notes throughout the month as to like what was going on, what was happening, and things like that. So let me just share with you the initial reaction that I had, and then I had sustained injuries during this month, and the effect of the block on my injuries was profound. I mean, because one of the things you might know about the Super Bloc is that its character is healing. It's natural character. It's kind of, I guess, it's nuance. This particular block is essentially designed for healing. Among of all the other things that you could possibly set up a block to do. And so I really put that to the test this last month. And again, the reaction that I had was just unbelievable. So let me start with, hey, this is what happened. So December 2024 on the 4th is when I received my block. The first thing I did was I set it up. And the first thing I noticed was the very first night, I had it's like nothing. It was like no reactions at all. And the only thing I could think of was, normally you set up your block, you put the rods on, and the recommendation is give it a good 4 hours to establish its field, and it goes to full strength at 24. So I had this thing set up in the afternoon, and by the time I slept in it, it had probably been, the plates had been facing each other for a good, I don't know, at least 9 hours, 12 hours. However, I slept in it and nothing happened. And it was only on the second day, the second night that I slept in it, where I just got, a gut punched in terms of how I was feeling. And I kind of just assumed that when you first set up your block, and this is just my thoughts, if you first set up your block at 15 feet apart, it takes, easily 24 hours or longer to establish a full field. So I wasn't really, my impression, my anecdotal observation here was that I wasn't getting the full, force of the block. I wasn't getting the full benefit of the Super Bloc because I set the plates so far apart, initially. And so it did take over 24 hours to finally, establish its field, because I felt it, major, a major impact. And the very first thing was, and I'm just calling it the microbiome war of 2024. So the very first initial reaction was something that comes up a lot in our discussions on Telegram, and it's the detox effect. And so because of the positioning of my block, it was basically right here where the trunk of my body is, what I was feeling, and this is what happened to me, was that very first night of when I was it fully established by the 5th. And so when I woke up on the 6th, for a whole week, I was literally sick to my stomach. And I knew that it was a detox effect, and it just really felt internally to my gut microbiome that there was a war going on. And when you think about what quantum energy does, it does all sorts of different things that are measurable biological reactions. And all I could think of was, the energy of this block was so strong that it was basically just amplifying my good bacteria in my microbiome, in which then set off a war against against the bad microbiome, the bacteria in your body. And it just started this war. And the best way I could explain how I felt that first week after, the block had established itself was I'd sleep in it, and every day I felt like I had eaten something really bad and there was this war going on. You know how you get that feeling when you ate something bad and you know that it's going to come out the back end, in a bad way. But it never did. I just continued to have normal, digestive processes, and with, like I was going okay. So I never had, like, quote, the colon blow that, you usually expect to happen when you eat something bad. But I had all the rumblings that would make me feel like I was about to blow my colon, but I never did. It was just everything kept coming out normal. But man, I tell you, my guts were just screwed up, and it was like I just felt sick to my stomach for a week. And then the other thing too, on that Friday when I woke up, I was about as blown away from just this absolute lack of energy. It felt like every last bit of energy was just sapped out of me, and I felt like it was going all towards my gut microbiome. I mean, if you guys have ever had food poisoning, you know how your body's energy just then concentrates to just your abdomen, and all your body's energy, your life force energies focused on on that war that's going on inside your gut, and all your energy goes to that, and you get really fatigued and tired because you're sick. Well, yeah, I mean, I felt like I was like the Walking Dead. I got up that morning and I barely could walk around and function, and I ended up like just sitting in front of my UV lamp and just trying to get as much biophotons, and I was trying to suck in as much electrons. I was zapping myself with my UV lamp, and then I'd sit in front of my red light lamp, and then I'd sit in front of my multi-wave oscillator and just getting electricity directly, just trying to bring in as much physical bioelectrical energy and biophotonic energy into my body, because I felt so completely drained. Now that whole complete drain feeling was only lasted about just the one day on that Friday the 6th, before I started to feel like I had a little bit of energy and could move around. But the whole microbiome war lasted about a week. In the second week, I didn't feel as sick. And so for the whole second week that I was sleeping in the block, it felt like I'd stabilized, and everything in my gut kind of gotten to whatever balance it was looking for. And I finally felt like I felt really good. And for this idea here on my gut health, whatever it did, it completely reset myself and rebalanced myself, because ever since that first week, I have had exceptional digestive processes, if you understand what I mean. I mean, I'm just really healthy from a gut perspective after that experience. And I thought I was pretty good on the whole detox regimen. I mean, when you have 5 blocks, you think you're pretty immune to the detox effect, but this one knocked me off my feet. It is that strong, and I do not recommend at all, if you've never ever done this, and if you've never put yourself in a block, don't sleep in this block. I'm just telling you, and if you do, be prepared, because the detox reaction from doing this was off the charts. As for someone like me, who's constantly doing detox stuff and constantly around blocks, it was pretty intense. But if you do it, I'm just letting you know, it takes about a week for me before I stabilize. I do have some, digestive, upset the second week. But after the second week, I haven't felt any problems at all with my gut. In fact, I feel really, really healthy. Digestion's great after the second week. But that was probably the first reaction I had, was I was just blown away by how just like, it's just major energetic gut punch and is the best way I can explain it. But yeah, it was very intense. Not for the weak, okay? So I just want to put that out there. So that was what the first week, that's what it was like. It lasted for 2 weeks, but again, the first week was the most intense feeling, or I didn't feel so sick after the first week. And then on November 11th, this is kind of what a side story, but this happened, and this was part of my experience. Was I took my dog for Norman, the older dog, to his annual checkup. And I hadn't. Usually, I try to do it once a year. I was about 6 months late, so it was like 18 months late since the last one. We went, and I just took him because he was starting. He was throwing up, unusually throwing up, and he had this thing on his side. I didn't know what it was. So I took him in for a checkup, and the diagnosis was Norman has stage 5 lymphoma with a mast cell tumor. So he's got 2 different types of cancer, and he's stage 5. And the veterinarian was like, "Yeah, he's it's as bad as it can get. We can't do any types of surgery. He's too far gone. You got 3 to 6 weeks, left. Enjoy your dog." And that. Yeah, if that's ever happened to you, and this is my second dog, that this is the news I'm getting. And so I was just emotionally devastated, mentally thrown for a loop. I mean, my mind, just, everything just stops. Your world stops. And all you can think about is like, what am I going to do? Or what are we going to do, for Norman? And so I got that diagnosis on the 11th. And as I'm trying to process what are we going to do? Because when I got the Norman diagnoses, we had to set up the first meeting, the first appointment with the oncologist and start the oncology thing. If you guys have been through this, you know what that's like. So that was set for Friday. But what happened the day after I got the diagnosis on Norman, I had an accident where I was out literally just walking to go check my mail. I tripped over a buckle in the sidewalk, and I slammed as hard as I can imagine slamming onto this concrete sidewalk, where I basically hit my head really, really hard on the sidewalk. I hit my head so hard on the sidewalk that when my jaw slammed shut, I broke a tooth off in my mouth, and I crushed my knee, and I bruised up my elbow really bad because I landed sort of on my right side. So I had a really, really bad accident on the day after. And so I cracked my head and broke a tooth that Thursday, which I was just mentally out of it. I mean, I was really trying to figure out what to do about Norman, and my brain was completely obsessed with, with like, okay, I had to process this. And while I was trying to process that, I had this severe brain injury. And so that started probably the worst week of my life, which was I had this bad injury, broke a tooth, and I'm not someone that goes to allopaths. I'm one of those grumpy old men that just really don't trust doctors, just given my life experience. So, I'm a heal thyself person. So I knew, based on all the other experiences, my daughter is an equestrian. She's gotten multiple concussions falling off horses. And so I'm very, 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 very experienced in people getting concussions. So my first thing was just make sure it wasn't so severe. And so I did all the things I'm supposed to do. But I knew that if I went to the doctor, they weren't going to help me, because there's nothing they could do about it, really. So there's just a list of stuff that you're supposed to do about it. So that's what I started to do. I just, made sure I didn't go to sleep right away, and I got evaluated by somebody, just making sure my mental cognition was still there, short-term memory loss. You look for all these different little symptoms, but I had some serious brain fog. I mean, I got hit in the head really, really hard. And so the next day, we go to, Norman goes to oncology. I can't drive. You don't drive when you've got a severe head injury. So my daughter came and took Norman to the oncologist for me, and then I got on a Zoom call, and we had basically a meeting in the afternoon with the oncology. And you've got this oncology resident that's basically has 16 espressos too many, and she's just rattling off all this stuff I'm supposed to think about: option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4, and all this stuff. So that, so I'm trying to process that, and my brain is really like, I'm just in major brain fog. I'm trying to process all this information, and I'm just like scatterbrained. And then this was also, I had to go to the dentist, emergency dentist, where they couldn't fit me in, so they just put a little cap on it that fell off that night anyway, so it was just kind of useless. But I went just to get evaluated, and then I made an appointment later the following week to get the tooth extracted, because the dentist was like, okay, you broke off too much of the tooth. We can't crown it. So your choices are root canal or extraction. And again, I know enough about the real world that you don't get a root canal. So I said, no, just pull it. So I made an appointment for the following week. And so here's the deal though. Um, when I hit my head, I wasn't in the presence of mind to use my block, because I was still sleeping like this. So I should have, in hindsight, moved the plates up to where my head was, but instead I didn't think about that. So, but I was still sleeping in the block every night. So I had my first dentist appointment, got evaluated, made an appointment to have my tooth pulled. And so right in here, after I cracked my head for these days right here, these 3 days, I was in extreme pain. My tooth was broken, no relief, nerve was exposed. I couldn't, it's wintertime, and I couldn't go outside because I couldn't breathe through my mouth because the cold air would just kill me, and I couldn't eat. So I was just eating soup and puddings and yogurts for these, until I could actually have my tooth pulled. So it was pretty much, it was absolute hell. I'm not going to put it lightly. So these 3 days, I'm just in major brain fog. And meanwhile, I'm trying to figure out, because after the meeting with the oncologist, I got to figure out, okay, well, what's the decision? So then right around in here, Philip gets a hold of me and says, hey, we got a new brain support frequency and I activated it for you so you can give it a try. So I'm like, okay. And so I just decided, okay, so on Sunday the 15th, I start the brain frequency. I just say, okay, I'm just going to run it during the day, and at night I'm running, Heal 360. And so I start running it. And so the craziest part of this whole story was I start the brain frequency while, and I'm sleeping in the block. And all of a sudden, the very next morning, I get a black eye. I mean, I woke up and my eye, well, it wasn't really black. It was just red. And my eye underneath where I hit my head swelled up, and it just was red. It was just like a black eye. It was completely red. And I just was like, oh my God, like what the heck is wrong with me? But you know what? Intuitively, I could just feel that this was a good thing. Like the pressure has now been released, and whatever bleeding was going on up in my head has now found a path out of my body. So this, in other words, it's relieving the pressure. Good thing, right? And it's found its way out through my eye socket. And so I woke up with this black eye. So another thing that happened that day was when I turned on the brain support frequency. I just was just I can't explain it, but it was just what happened was I just had I guess a moment of clarity. It was just like all of a sudden everything became clear to me as to what I needed to do with Norman. So I had a family meeting, went through all the options. Thank God my daughter is a veterinarian student, licensed and very experienced vet tech, but she's, going to school to become a veterinarian. So she's helping me, explaining like what the resident was telling me. And we have a family meeting, and it's just absolute clarity with 100% of my heart, intuition and all of that rolled into that, where it's just, okay, this is what we're going to do, right? How we're going to approach helping Norman, and the ultimate decision where I had wrestled with, it's really hard to kind of process that and try to come up with a decision, what are we going to do? But then all of a sudden I turn on the brain frequency support, and it's like, oh, clarity. It's just I had clarity. I knew what to do. It felt right. I knew it was right. I also conferred with Philip about it, and it just kind of was like, okay, this is the right thing to do, which is, and we chose not to do the chemo route. We decided to just treat the, medically treat the tumors with what they knew would work, or what they thought, what they were hoping would work to kind of reduce the tumors so that they weren't growing as fast. In other words, buy him some time, buy him some relief, right? None of this was going to cure anything, but just to see what we could do to help him without poisoning him, which was the decision. And it felt right, it's because I was really wrestling with that decision. So, I had this incredible moment of clarity, and then the next day I wake up with this black eye. And so I get a hold of Philip, and we're just chatting on Telegram, and I'm like, you won't believe what happened to me after I turned on the brain frequency. And so Philip offered to check with Roman, because if you know Roman Hafner, which is the Leela Healer Network individual who's just incredibly gifted. I mean, he's just naturally gifted with the ability to basically read and see frequencies, and it's independent of time and space. So he did they did a little mini session for me on me, and then Philip got back to me and let me know that after talking with Roman, that that Roman had sensed that he could see, however he sees, right? He can see frequencies, or he can see your bioenergy and all that stuff. He's just a really amazing human. And so Philip got back to me, and this was kind of what his response was. So, I basically sent him this little message that said, "Hey, it's so serendipitous. You tell me I've had this very odd reaction in the first 24 hours after starting the brain frequency," and I explained to him that I had a fall. I had a really bad injury on my head. And he goes, "Hey, you want us to check on it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, please, And this is what Philip shared with me.
Hey, Kay. So I spoke with Roman, and he said that you actually had a real concussion, a quite strong one, and with the brain frequency, within this one night and day, it went from a strong concussion to a weak concussion. And you still have a slight concussion though, and it's indeed like you intuitively felt it, that the frequency supported your brain and the head basically to move out this light bleeding that happened, and try to find the fastest way out, and that was the eye. So that's really a good thing, but it needs to be looked at again. So we'll check again tomorrow, because it's your light concussion isn't gone yet. So maybe still just take it easy, drink good and a lot, and yeah, then that should fade. And keep you. Oh, he also mentioned, keep using the brain support frequency. Not at night. I would actually go for Heal 360 at night, but you can do whatever. But during the day, it'd be good to use the brain support for another few days, right? At least a couple. And tomorrow we'll check again, and I'll let you know.
So that was Philip's. Basically they did a session on me, confirmed that I had a serious concussion, but in one day, after starting the brain frequency and sleeping in the block, the very next day, boom, I had a biological reaction to the frequency. It kicked off a self-healing process in my brain. This is my interpretation, not medical advice. Lots of disclaimers. None of this is medical advice, okay? But what happened to me was, I turned this thing on. I'm sleeping in the block, and then boom, it kicks off it's healing me, and so it just kicks off this rapid healing process, and all of a sudden the blood just comes right out of my eye socket. And by the way, all the pain was gone at this point. I got hit in the head on the 12th, and by the couple of days later, it just wasn't. It didn't hurt anymore unless I touched it. Which was strange to me, because I had one hell of a welt on my head. But the pain went away. I'm in the block every night. I started this frequency. It kicked off some amazing reaction in my head, and the blood just comes out of my eye socket, and it just like, and my eyes all swollen, but it doesn't hurt, and it just feels like this is good for me, So it was just bizarre. It was like the most bizarre thing that ever happened. I never ever had something where I used a frequency and then immediately something happened to me. So like this was, I sat in the block, immediately had a reaction, turned on the frequency, immediately had a reaction, and I'm in the block every night now. So then that was wild. And then of course Norman had his second oncology appointment on the 17th, where he first got treated with something called L-SPAR, and for the lymphoma. And then he's doing he's doing 2 other drugs for his mast cell. So he started his medication on the 17th. So then what happened then on the 19th was, I finally go back to the dentist, and they have to extract a tooth. So I have like tooth surgery, And yeah, that was where I realized that I need to move the plates up to my head, and I should have been doing it the whole time. So at this point, I have my tooth is pulled, and it's, they're numbing me up. And so the doctors are going, the dentist was like, okay, you should take Tylenol or ibuprofen, once, and do it as soon as you can. Once the swelling or once the numbing agents wore off, you're going to be in a lot of pain. So what I did is right when I came back from having my tooth extracted, I went and I just went and put the block up. This is when I actually moved the block up so that it was over. It was like I was sleeping between the plates with my head between the plates. And so I just took a nap after I came back from the dentist with my head between the plates. I was probably asleep for a few hours. And the most amazing thing happened then, which was when I woke up, I could, the numbing was gone. I could feel my tongue and my lips and everything, but I wasn't in any pain. I had actually stopped at the store on the way home and bought a little bottle of Tylenol and a little bottle of ibuprofen because I don't really use those, but I bought them, because the dentist was telling me I was going to be in a lot of pain. And I was bleeding a lot, by the way. But I woke up, the bleeding was stopped, and it wasn't hurting. It didn't hurt. It hasn't hurt since. I never felt the pain. I went, it's just really weird, right? That you go and have a tooth extracted out of your mouth, and you don't feel the pain because you're numb, and then the numbing thing wears off, and you don't feel the pain. I had my head in a block for that long, and so I left the block set up like this for about, I would say, I'm guessing that it was set up like that for about 3 or 4 days before I moved it back to my body. So, but basically though, it was like the bleeding stopped, the pain was gone, my head didn't hurt anymore. Now my tooth doesn't hurt anymore, and I'm starting to feel really, really good mentally. So, but as Philip mentioned, they did check on me the second day, and that's when Roman said, "Hey, you need to leave the brain frequency on for a couple more days." So that's this here. So I used the brain frequency and slept in the block. The whole time I was sleeping in the block, but I left the brain frequency on for 5 nights per Roman's recommendation. And then after I turned off the brain frequency on the 20th, and by that point, again, my tooth was not an issue. I'm just missing a tooth now, and my head just doesn't hurt anymore. My eye started to reduce. I mean, I had pretty much swollen eye, and then by Friday, it was just like my eye was normal. The blood was gone. My eye looked normal, and it was just the weirdest experience. I mean, it was literally the strangest experience of just going through something like this, because you would think it would take a lot longer for all of these things and a lot more problems, but none of that happened to me. Thank God. So then Friday, I really screwed my back. I started trying to do some stuff with Norman to help him out, and so I picked, and long story short, picking him up. He's 28 pounds. I have a disability with my back. I've had it for my lifetime. Since I had a couple of major accidents as a young man. I wrenched my back really bad. So, but anyway, I just picked him up wrong, and I royally screwed my back up on the 20th. And it was so bad where, I'm on to my third major physical problem during this 4-week trial. And my third problem was I hurt my back so bad I could barely walk. And so I literally just sat on the couch. Because the only time I wasn't in screaming pain was sitting or laying down. So I couldn't walk. And so, my daughter's coming over, feed me. I mean, it's horrible. So, I mean, I couldn't do anything with my back. So right around here is where I switched it back. I think it was that Saturday I switched it back where I'm like, okay, now I feel like I got a handle on the pain on the tooth. Now I moved the plates back to where they're over my body. I'm not having any microbiome issues now at this time. But at this point, now I've got just really bad back. I can't walk. Normally when I have bad back problems, I got to walk with a cane. But it's rare. But this one was, I couldn't even function with cane or not. So I just barely could move. So I moved the block plates back to where my body is in between them, right? boom, within 2 days, I'm normal. I'm just sore. And it was like, wow, that was the fastest I'd ever recovered from wrenching my back ever in the history of me. And I was just like, whoa, this thing is like really healing me. It's healing me so fast. I can't believe what was happening to my body. So literally all this stuff happened to me. And by the time Christmas came, which was basically less than 2 weeks since I cracked my head, less than a week before I had to have my tooth extracted, just a few days after I just killed my back where I couldn't even walk. And I'm like walking around and, we're just doing the Christmas stuff. And it was like none of this had happened except for I'm missing a tooth. And in fact, one of these nights right in here, I think I was sitting here, I just was just like rubbing my head, and the scab just falls right off. Like it healed so fast that, and I'll show you a picture of what it looked like, but the scab just falls off. And my head looks completely normal, like nothing happened. I literally went from having a severe concussion, then kicked off to a mild concussion, to what I feel like I'm completely back to normal. The scab is gone, the blood's gone. I look normal, like hadn't even happened. And that's what was so bizarre, because by Christmas, it was like none of that had happened. None of it had happened. It was so strange. But that's what I was doing. So I continued to sleep in the block. And I just basically every day I sleep in it, I wake up and I feel awesome. So I just slept in the block again. I'm still sleeping in the block, and today's the 3rd of January. We got through New Year's Day, and right now, as of yesterday, we took Norman to his 3rd oncology just for the checkup, because it's 3 weeks after diagnoses, to see if the medicine's helping, and also, what else could we be doing? And so luckily, just good news is that his lymphoma and his mast cell tumor, they've reduced in size by 15%. He's having good days, because he was having a lot of bad days. I'm keeping a log, so I have good days and bad days, and he was having nothing but bad days for a couple of weeks. But he's had a bunch of good days. It's like he's sleeping in the block with me, but not directly, as you can see from the photo, right from the diagram. And so this is kind of how it was. And so as of, I guess it was like as of Christmas, though, I started to move the block. So I've moved the plates now down to here, where Norman is now sleeping in it. And now Norman's sleeping in it. This was about right here. So right about here is when I got over all of my injuries, and I decided I need to start focusing on Norman. So I moved the plates so that Norman's sleeping in the block with me. My feet are still in the block, but he is fully in the block at night. And so ever since I put him in the block, we go to oncology, and we get this great news that he's actually doing well. I mean, he's still got stage 5 lymphoma, all right? But this original thing that the veterinarian told me was like, your dog has three to 6 weeks. Well, it's been 3 weeks, and he's doing really well. And so now it's like, oh, this is great. So I'm keeping Norman in the block along with me. I'm healed. He's doing well. And that's just really the remarkable story of my December, of not only testing out, what I originally wanted to do, right, was I wanted to test out how it affect my sleep and dreams, and if I had any physical effects. and yeah, the answer is yeah, I had some physical effects. I had some incredible physical effects that were not planned. And that's kind of how it goes. So just kind of wanted to show you. Now, I normally don't show my face because, I got a great face for radio. That's why I don't show it. I like my privacy as well. But I just wanted to show you that, this is how bad it was, where my injuries were the severe concussion, broken tooth, back injury again. This is right after I hit it, right after I'd fell. And I'd smashed my head. This was like that, a day later, you can see this giant baseball lump on my forehead. And then, of course, when I got the black eye, this was like the day after I woke up with it. So the very first day, my whole eye was red and swollen. This is the second day. And, this is, just me and my eye. And then, of course, my head injury was healing. And, of course, this is the day after I had my tooth removed and I lost a tooth. So, yeah, it was. I got beat up real bad, guys. But you know what? I'll tell you, between the brain support frequency and being in that block, I do not believe at all that I would have healed as fast. I mean, I healed so fast. And the one thing I do want to point out, if you take a look at, and you just Google, like, how long does it take for someone to recover from a severe concussion? They're basically saying, and this is just average, that most people are back to normal within 6 months. I was back to normal in 2 weeks because I was in the block every day. And I'm attributing that. And that's, just is my opinion. This is all my opinion. But I'm telling you that being in that block was a game changer for what had happened to me last month. And I believe it's becoming a game changer for Norman. So I'm going to keep leaving the block plates like this. I want to have him sleep in it. And I'll be doing another video on saving Private Norman. But bottom line, though, here's my summary. Now, what happened to my sleep? No effect to the sleep, no detrimental effect. I continue to sleep 4 to 5 hours a night and about 3 to 4 hours during the day in my block, and there's been no disruption to sleep whatsoever. I get a good night's rest. I feel great when I wake up, like I said. Now, my dreams, the interesting thing about my dreams is that the whole time I've been in the block, I don't remember my dreams now. That's just me, right? And I'm just telling you that this is my story. But I usually remember some of my dreams, but I don't remember any of my dreams. And then when I wake up in that morning, in that very moment of lucid dreaming, where you're starting to wake up, you're asleep, but you're still asleep. I am very cognizant, because normally, my experience with lucid dreaming is you're kind of like, well, if you talk to the, energy workers, you kind of do astral projection, and you're kind of, you go off onto different dimensions and things like that. And then you come back into your body, and you're kind of like, just confused, and you're partially, but bottom line though is you've got a lot of just, you're just trying to get back into your body. You're trying to just wake up, and you're kind of groggy, right? No, I don't do that now. When I'm in the block now, that I'm sleeping in the block, I don't remember any of my dreams. I don't remember what happens when I go to sleep. And when I wake up, I'm really cognizant. Like, I'm thinking. I mean, I'm actually thinking and processing like I would if I was awake. So it's like I'm really conscious, instead of unconscious. And it's just the strangest thing. It's like my body sleeps, but I don't. And it's just the weirdest thing when it comes to my dreams. So no bad dreams, no negative things. It's just a really weird feeling that I'm going through when I start to first wake up in the mornings. I'm thinking already, as if I'm awake. There's no grogginess. I go straight from body wakes up, and I'm conscious. I'm 100% conscious. I'm thinking. My brain's processing, and I just get out of bed, and there's no grogginess at all. It's really strange, and that's what's going on with dreams. Now, of course, I did talk about the major detox reaction. That took, again, a full week to get over, and I just pushed through it and made it. It was not pleasant, but I did it, and the second week was a little rough, but nothing like the first, and then after that, I just feel very great. And then, of course, the character of the Super Bloc is healer, and I will tell you 100% it is. Yes, it is a healer block, and it is the most amazing experience I've ever had, ever. In terms of, like, not only having the accident, but also just how fast I've recovered. And again, like with what happened with Norman, he's getting better. Well, he's not getting worse. Okay, that's probably the best way to put it. He's not getting worse. But yeah, that's my story. It's January 3rd now. I'm going on my 5th week in the block, and I've decided that, this was so amazing. I'm just going to permanently sleep in a block. And then again, too, I want to stipulate, if you understand, like if you watch my video called "What Does Quantum Energy Do?", where I summarize all the biological responses that have been evaluated and measured through the studies, there are so many biological things happening while you're subjected to quantum energy. Now, and I'm subjecting myself to quantum energy at the absolute strongest level ever, and I'm now experiencing the biological effects of that experience. And so there's so much more going on. We're talking about oxidative potentials and ATP production and accelerated wound healing for sure. And that's kind of really what's been my experience here is that sleeping in the block has just been unbelievable in terms of my physical reactions to it. And the best part about it was I was worried in the beginning that I wouldn't be able to sleep in it, but that's not been an issue. I kind of do miss being able to dream, like dream, like normally dream. Um, but so that's a kind of a weird little quirk, and I'm just sharing that. And that's really it. That's my story. It's been a crazy month. I don't want to do it again. I just absolutely don't want to go through what I went through, and it's just so weird. If you understand the universe does what the universe does, right? There's an old saying. I think it's an old Buddhist saying or something like that. It says, if you want to make the universe laugh, show it your plan. And that's so true because the universe does what the universe does. And so I don't know whether the universe said, hey, you know what? Let's put the block to a real test. Let's slam your head against the sidewalk. And let's break off a tooth and crunch your back so we can test out and how well the healer aspect works. Because that's exactly what happened. It's so bizarre to me that all of this happened right when I was doing this experiment. But that's what it is. That's my story. And so there you go. And I would love to hear what you guys are experiencing with the Super Bloc. Also, what you guys are experiencing with the brain support. I'm already seeing some great testimonials in Quantum Upgrade of people using the brain support frequency. It sounds so amazing for those of you who are using it for other things. And if any of you get the craziest idea like me that you're going to go sleep in this thing, yeah, it'd be so great to compare notes and see how it affects you. And hopefully the universe doesn't decide to put you through this test like I did. But that's it. That's my story, guys. And I just want to say thanks for listening to it. I know that a lot of you are interested in what actually happened to me and how I reacted to it. And there you go. Here's my story. So thanks for watching the video. I hope you found this interesting. If you like this kind of stuff, like and subscribe. I do crazy stuff all the time. And this was obviously the craziest thing I've ever done. If you want to know more about me, I'm at the Tinkers Academy blog. I'm also on YouTube. And also, I do have a health and healing Telegram group if you're interested in that kind of stuff and you want to join, just, link below. So, but anyway, that's my story of sleeping in the the Super Bloc. And what happened when I turned on the brain support frequency. It's the wildest story ever in terms of all the things I've done with Quantum. And I look forward to continuing to sleep in it because, one more other thing that I mentioned, right, in my unboxing video was that while I'm sleeping in this block, not only is it doing all that stuff I mentioned, but this Super Bloc has a deuterium mitigation frequency in it, right? So it's lowering the deuterium levels. So it's really an anti-aging hack, but, it's really hard to evaluate anti-aging. But I know for a fact that, not for a fact, but I know that it's doing this anti-aging thing to me as well, and that might be part of how it heals so fast. Who knows? But that's just something else that's going on. So all of my water in my body's getting structured every night. The deuterium's getting loaded. I'm getting a rapid wound healing, effect, and yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Anyway, that's my story. Aloha.